Okay, I think we are live. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to another week of Agent Matters, our weekly catch up with representatives of travel agencies, TMCs and membership organisations to find out how they're coping and working through the coronavirus crisis. I'm Abra Dunsby from TTG, and this week we will be discussing all things business travel with my panel, who I'm going to introduce now. So joining me today is Clive Wratten, Chief Executive of the Business Travel Association, Maria Baty, Managing Director of Altour, and Tom Davis, Director of Customer Support and Compliance at Click Travel. So thanks so much for joining me, all of you. And just quickly, for those of you watching on Facebook Live, you can write your questions in the comments tab and we will do our best to answer them during the session. So how are you all doing? Tom, should we start with you? How's everything at Click? How many people have you got working? How many are on furlough? What's the situation?
I mean, from a revenue and bookings perspective, it's looking, to be honest, quite bleak. Our bookings are 95% down. We've only got 5% of our previous volumes revenue still going, but we have furloughed 75% of our team. So our core team is now down to 60 people, and we've kept a core piece of each department across the business to enable us to continue to move forward and be ready for when lockdown inevitably ends. We've decided also to top up our employees' pay to 100%, and we thought that was really important because our employees have been with us on our journey over the past 10 to 15 years, doing well and getting a lot of profits in. And now we feel it's the time to sort of repay that loyalty and be ready for when we come out the other side, really.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Clive, what about for your members?
Yeah, I mean, we most of the members have taken the opportunity to furlough staff and fairly early on. In a survey we did recently, pretty much 45% of them have said they've got between 50 and 70% staff furloughed, and a further 24%, 71 to 90. So you can see the majority are at the higher end, and I think that's also changed a little bit more from the 1st of May, and kind of going up to a higher number. For us at the BTA, we're only a team of 5, and we've got 2 on furlough right now, so it's quite an impact for us. But I think, as Tom said, across the industry, the numbers are pretty similar everywhere, north of 50%, and some right up to 90% plus.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And Maria, the situation at Altour?
Yeah, it's pretty similar. We furloughed around 70% of our workers, mainly in the front line. We've kept essential services, finance, training actually, and technology. A number of departments are still operating. We're making the most of that opportunity, but we've adapted surprisingly well. It's amazing how quickly we have all got used to working from home and working in this new environment. And I think it just shows how adaptable we can all be.
Indeed. And actually also for Maria, Altour has both a leisure division and a business division. So when this all began, did you notice the impact on the business side of the business earlier than for leisure?
Yeah, the corporate travel switched off immediately when things started to break in China. And we saw that market close off pretty quickly. And corporate travel is always at the sharp end of what happens. And we absolutely reflected that, and bookings started to dwindle once China started, and then that, continued to snowball from there. Whereas on the leisure side, I think people still progress with their holidays if they were able to, but corporates are very much more interested in their duty of care and being careful not to send people into places where they might be at risk.
Tom, I know that Click Travel has mentioned that they've been booking some domestic travel for key workers. Is that still the case? And what sort of percentage of business is that accounting for?
Yeah, so pretty much the 5% that I mentioned is key workers and also emergency housing. So it's a very big challenge for us to work with this because it's not clear which hotels are open, and it's all very manual work that we're carrying out for these people, but it is still carrying on. And also it's important to note that key workers aren't just who you would think, a frontline NHS staff. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, people maintaining things like railways and roadworks. And we've got a lot of our customers still continuing to travel and stay in hotels in order to carry out that essential work.
I know that Tom and Maria, you mentioned you're not eligible for the coronavirus business interruption loan scheme, or you haven't taken it. Clive, what about your members? Are any of them taking the loan?
Yeah, it's interesting actually to see who is and who isn't taking it right now. And again, we've been out to the members and kind of discussing this because we're obviously lobbying government for the support for the industry all the time. And as of last week, we only had 2 that had actually got the money in the bank. We had a further 12 that were in process, and that doesn't mean it was all bad. Some were just kind of in the process, but others were seeing real gaps in time from the bank responding to them, and really struggling with that. And then the majority, which is kind of out of the survey, about another 35 that we hadn't actually chosen to apply for them at that point if they were eligible, and the rest were probably too big in the turnover basis to apply for them. So I think the travel industry, or business travel industry, reflects the rest of the industry, and that they've been pretty hard to get hold of. And it's more the exception than the norm for those that actually do and see some money dropping into the bank account.
Okay. And Clive, I know that you've been writing to MPs, or the BTA has, requesting that the business rate holiday that leisure travel agents are eligible for also be extended to TMCs. So what's the update on that? Is there an update?
Yeah, well, it's been frustrating because, like a lot of these things, the actual detail is fairly woolly, and it's retail, leisure and hospitality, and the phrase travel agent is used within the government guidelines. So the argument that we clearly made was that we are travel agents, and therefore should apply. So we wrote to the Chancellor and various departments around it. It took some time. Understandably, they were getting deluged from every industry. They came back and said, actually, we define retail as people with footfall. So if you don't have a front door on a high street, then it's not going to be included. Regardless, the point that we made as online travel agencies that were getting, we knew were getting it, even though they didn't have that footfall. However, in taking consultation with them, we learned that there was a possibility of going direct to local government. So we prepared a letter on behalf of all of our members to send to their local government just to ask for it. And actually this week I know of one further TMC that has managed to get it by moving, just directly contacting local government. So we're not saying it's guaranteed success, but we're encouraging members to do that. We have had others to just go directly into consultation with them, with local councils to discuss it. So it's not a great picture, and it's not a defined you can get it, but we're encouraging all of our members to write to their local council, and their local MP asking for it. And we are beginning to see some success coming through, but it's by definitely the minority rather than the majority.
Okay. Okay, so given that lack of support from the government currently, how can TMCs be preserving cash flow right now? Maria, how are you doing this at Altour now?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, we've put very strict controls in place in terms of authorising any payment out. And then we've been working with every supplier we have to defer, negotiate, come up with new terms, from landlords to technology suppliers, right the way across the spectrum. And I have to say, most people have been very understanding, and we've been able to secure some good results.
Good. And Tom, how about you?
Yeah, I would mirror Maria's response, to be honest. Before the furlough scheme came in, we carried out a full review of all the costs that we've got coming up, going out of the business, and seeing if any of those could be delayed or would still be required during this time. One thing that's been really beneficial for us, though, is the way that we actually host and deliver our applications for customers to book. It's called service architecture, but that means that our platform scales up and also scales down with the demand. So we've seen a reduction of costs just by the fact that we're using less of our services and less customers that are using our platform.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And Clive, what advice are you giving to your members right now?
Well, clearly, the guys, Maria and Tom, have explained most of them, is use the furlough scheme. That's one of your biggest cash burners, is clearly staff, is to manage your fixed assets the best way that you can. But I think the key advice we give not only to our members but to our partners as suppliers is to talk. And I think Maria said, well, most people are understanding there has been some frustration of people just stopping and not having conversations in terms of money flow coming into our chain. We wouldn't want our members to do that. We are in this together, and we need to look after the entire business travel supply chain. So I think those that are having conversations as our members to work out the best way forward with their partners or suppliers is really the right way forward. Just to stonewall people right now is just frankly the wrong way to go about it. So we just encourage people to talk.
And from a government point of view, is there anything else you think the government should be doing to ensure demand for business travel? Clive, I'll pose that one to you first.
Well, yeah, we covered a few areas, but the most important thing is consistency of message. What we're going to need, whether it's leisure travel or corporate travel coming back, is confidence of the consumer to be able to travel. And that's not just that clearly they're not going to get sick when they travel, so the appropriate measures are in place that make them feel comfortable, as much as that is, but it's about having consistency around the globe. So when you're arriving in an airport, you don't suddenly get sprung with a 14-day quarantine in a business travel. You're not going to travel. So I think it's tough because clearly this is a huge health issue, which is people's well-being is the most important thing. But equally, we need to get the economy moving. So the needs, I feel for the government, they've got to get it right in giving people confidence that the time is right to travel. So we're talking to airports and train operators and airlines about how we can get the confidence back in there that will get government buy-in. And we're talking to the DFT. We're part of the aviation restart campaign about what is needed to get people back on aeroplanes and the industry back moving again, as we are with trains and hoteliers. And I think that's really what the government has got to do is really put some clear guidelines in that make people feel that they can travel again, and one, they're not going to get caught overseas, and two, they're protected in the right way that they should be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Regarding the airlines and the credit note cash refund issue, so some airlines are still continuing to offer credit notes over cash refunds. Tom, are you still finding this is the case, or are things starting to improve for Click?
Yeah, we are seeing an improvement. Some of the low-cost airlines, which is quite a big amount of our business, has been really good with refunds and are improving. We are still struggling with some of the more long-haul international airlines. But to be honest as well, there's a problem almost for the future of us when customers come to us and then try and rebook their travel. We think that's when that's going to hit us, if you like.
And Maria, are you finding a similar thing? Is it starting to improve for Altour?
Starting to improve. Airlines are saying they will refund. The time lag is quite some time. There's often a 12-week wait or longer to expect the refund to be processed. But it is easing, and there's a commitment from many airlines to get the refund processed. It's just a matter of time. Okay.
And Clive, when the airlines are refunding, how long is it taking for your members to receive those refunds? Maria, you mentioned a lag there, so.
I mean, it's right. It's 12. We've heard of 18 weeks, and I've got one of 20 weeks that it's taking to, or suggested, because they haven't seen it yet, that it's going to come through. And I think the issue here is most of the airline staff have been furloughed, so the ones that are doing refunds are not there. And I guess it's a frustration because we understand the cash flow scenario for an airline. We need a strong airline industry to survive for all of us to move forward, but equally that money needs to flow back. So it's about finding a compromise. And the issue that many of our members have seen is the movement from being able to refund in GDS to BSP Link, which gives the control back to the airlines, but equally it gives the control back to their staff having to work out the refund if there's one to be worked out, which delays it and allows them to hold on to the money for a lot longer. So I think we've been quite successful in getting airlines to move back to cash as an alternative, and we've always said that compromise is the best way forward to protect the supply chain. But equally, we're now talking to IATA along with our European colleagues around saying, bring back the refunds into GDS, let our agents do it, but have a defined timeline so it protects your cash flow. So normally it will come back on the next BSP cycle, which could be within a week effectively. that say, okay, but the refund will come in 8 weeks. So then you can go to your corporate client and say, it is happening. We do it for you. So it's controlled. The airline don't have to do it, but you're going to take 8 weeks, which you think is fair to get it back. So that's where we really kind of think there's a compromise now to move on to. But hats off to the UK airlines who have always been pretty cooperative all the way through this and done the right thing.
Great. And then from a rail perspective, are any of you experiencing those charges from Trainline for cancellations and for some of the rail booking platforms? Maria, is that an issue for you at Altour?
Yeah, we work with both Trainline and Evolvi. Evolvi are not charging cancellations, but Trainline are and have not moved on that position at all. It is causing some challenges for clients that are expecting refunds.
I imagine that's the same for your members then, Clive?
Yeah, it is. And I think what is disappointing about Trainline's position right now is it's just for the corporate sector. So if you're a consumer going direct there, you don't get that charge. I think the train operating companies, along with the Rail Development Group, have done a great job in having a consistency policy of full refunds. So it's been a real shame that Trainline, and I understand their commercial position, but it does kind of stick out a bit like a sore thumb with all the airlines even now coming through and not having the charges that they did have, that one remains out there, and just being arbitrary charging the corporate sector, which is kind of strange.
Tom, I know that's not an issue for you because you have your own internal booking platform, is that correct?
Yeah, so we have essentially our own version of what Evolvi and Trainline do for the corporate sector. I'm not saying there is no charges for a refund, but it's based on whatever the corporate arrangement with our clients is. So it's not a default across the board charge, and we're also not charging what RDG and ATOP charge for those refunds.
Okay. And Tom, as Director of Customer Support, what are the questions that you're receiving from customers the most?
As Clive touched on, certainly when are we going to get our refunds? How does the refund work? How much are we due? And as you can imagine, if you've got quite a vast corporate program, £1 million or above spend, there can be a lot of intricacies of how and when the money is going to come back. So we're spending quite a lot of time with our clients trying to help them see their own cash flow position. And then in terms of day-to-day transactions with the agents, it's much more, we know which hotels are open, how can I stay, where can I stay? And there's a lot of conversations going on to get those key and vulnerable workers positioned in hotels.
Maria, are those similar sort of issues for you then from customers?
For refunds, yeah. The work that we're doing now is trying to secure refunds, rebooking. We're not even rebooking, mostly trying to find out what the position is. And refunds is really the key focus for probably most TMCs at the moment, is trying to work with refunds on customers that have got bookings coming up and those that have had to cancel.
So it's clearly a pretty tough time for the business travel sector. Have you started diversifying in any way to sort of mitigate some of the effects of the crisis? Maria, I might start with you on that one.
Across our group, actually, we have made an advance to government in certain areas to offer some of our services, because a lot of our staff are call centre workers. They're used to dealing with customers. They've got good customer manner. They're trained in customer questions. We haven't got any breakthroughs there yet, but we have certainly on the leisure division a lot of opportunity there to maybe step in and help and fill some gaps. So that's one area that we've done outside of that. And then internally, we're just really focusing on projects that haven't got completed and being razor sharp about, I think it's made us all razor sharp about what needs to be done, and use this time to not waste time, but things that we really need to get efficient, and projects that we never got finished are now being completed. And that's why we haven't furloughed that part of our business, because it's going to be essential towards our recovery. And we've put a lot of time into innovating our training programs, actually, training new projects, and yeah, also offering our service to government should they want it.
And Tom, what about at Click Travel?
So as soon as the furlough process was sort of kicked in, we looked at what the core team needed to be and what we think would be really, really important for our customers and us as a business on the way out of lockdown. So we've put together a new product package, if you like, called Click Care, which is focused on what the business travel is going to be like on the way out of lockdown. So ensuring that corporates can know where their travellers are and be able to put in some restrictions that we think are going to be relevant in the new world. So such as if certain areas have got travel bans, or if companies want to employ travel bans for their clients based on new outbreaks of the COVID, or any other things that are stopping them being able to travel in those areas. So our Click Care package has been put together to be fit for corporates to manage travel in the new world. So we've been literally developing that, marketing it, and it's been released last week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lot of our work has been on duty of care as well. It's going to be essential for TMCs to be strong in that area when we come out of here.
Mm-hmm. And Clive, what about for your members?
I mean, the guys are kind of speaking about what is important. I think, there is diversification. The travel management industry has been fantastic at evolving over recent times. We see it personally as a professional services industry, and that are offering advice to corporates around how they grow their business. And it will be key to the economy starting, and we'll start with business travel. So it's about, clearly duty of care is going to be important, but it always has been. It's just taking it on beyond that. But I think the reality is that TMCs are evolving to be all-encompassing in terms of advising, consulting on businesses around travel is just one part of it. It's growing their business, how they look after their people, and looking at new opportunities, because what's going on in the background of this is Brexit is still happening. There's trade deals got to be signed around the world for the UK, and we need to get people back out there, and we need to be informed on what's happening behind that as well, and keeping our clients up to date, because they're not all multinational companies who are across this. So this industry has a huge part to play in the recovery of this country's economy and the global economy.
I've just seen we've actually had a question come in. From Jason here, he's saying it's been widely reported that the corporate travel business will not return to previous trading levels for between 3 to 5 years. What are your thoughts here, and how will TMCs potentially deal with this? Maria, can I ask you that one?
Yeah, I think certainly in the short term, we're not going to see any up trading for at least to the end of this year. It's going to be very, very slow, and I think most TMCs know that. Most businesses know that. What happens beyond that will really depend on how safely we can move forward, and a lot of those are unknowns at the moment. If nothing much breaks through in the way of antibody testing, vaccines, then it could well be 3 to 5 years. If we get breakthroughs and we can see a way forward that's safe and sustainable, then I think maybe the recovery could be quicker. But certainly, and from here to the next 3 years, it will be a troublesome and slow pickup from here.
Clive, would you agree with that, or anything to add?
Yeah, I'm kind of less pessimistic of going all the way out to 5 years. I think it is, 12 months we may see returns to some sort of levels, maybe not where we were at before. We're pretty resilient as a human race to get back and get through this kind of stuff. And I also think that there is the longer term human impact of a declining economy into a recession that could be equally as terrible as what we're going through right now. So we have to make a decision to get back out and trading. We need people going out to build hospitals. We need people going over and researching for antibody tests to stop anything future coming like this. Business travel is not just about going to sign a multi-billion pound deal for a hedge fund. It's about building the world and keeping it safe. So it's really important that we get back. But it will change forever. But I would hope that it's not going to be as long as 5 years, but it's going to be significant for some time to come.
Tom, any predictions on your side?
Yes, I mean, from our perspective as Click Travel, we are much more of a domestic TMC, and on the back of what Clive just said around economic the economy rebuilding, and on the way out, we think there's going to be measures such as lots of house building, lots of construction, and etc. And that also comes into the business travel industry. So we actually feel that in domestic wise, it will be coming back a lot quicker than international. So we are expecting shoots of increased business to the early next year as the economy starts to rebuild itself and the government putting measures to do so.
So it sounds like all of your teams are very busy, and Clive, your members are very busy right now. How are you taking care of staff's well-being during this tricky time? Tom, should we start with you there?
Yeah, so we took a slightly different approach in terms of what we did with our furlough staff. So we still included them in all of our internal messaging, all the messaging that we're going out, any sessions that we've got with the CEO Jill and the SLT. And kept them all in the same messaging application so that everybody can still stay in touch and be part of the social activities that we're doing as a company, even though they're on furlough. And we found that to keep people still feel like they're part of the company, even though at the moment there's not the work there for them.
How about you, Maria?
Yeah, we've done similar. We set up a Facebook group so that all of our furloughed members and our working members can all join the Facebook group and keep in touch from a social perspective. We deliberately didn't furlough our training teams, and we've developed some training programs because our staff can still attend training even when they're furloughed. So we've been keeping in touch with them by running a course of training programs, which I think has been really well received by all of our staff that have been furloughed and our ones that are working. So we're very aware of that, and our two members of my team attended the BTA session just this morning, which was about looking after furloughed workers and how to make sure that people don't feel lonely and disattached from what's going on, and they both found it really, really helpful. So there's a lot of support around for us, especially through the BTA, and making sure that we've got little measures for how we can continue that communication.
Mm-hmm. And Clive, anything to add there?
I think they cover most of it from my point of view. My staff we keep in contact with them, and most importantly, we always try and remember when we do see them, we smile and we don't just download all the issues of the week onto those guys that are sat at home who've had time to sit worrying about it. So we try and make it as honest but as light-hearted as possible. But clearly for the members, as Maria said, we put on sessions this morning on well-being. We do other seminars, we put some training on, and we opened it up much wider audience than we normally would do to give people sat at home. And we've seen a real demand for people saying that we're furloughed, but we want to do some training, and I want to just watch something, and I want to get involved. So it's about keeping them that and giving them some hope as well as being honest. But the one thing about video conferencing, it seems great, and is it going to change the world and travel? Nobody's going to ever travel again. But for me personally, do I miss being in a room with people? It's just not the same. So it's important that we've done for the BTA this morning. We've actually declared a no Zoom day every week for us as a team, which seems counterintuitive to what you're saying, but everybody's faces lit up when I said that. So it is equally getting that balance, because we've just gone hell for leather. Keep talking to everybody, keep talking to people on screen, and actually it actually just needs to take some time away from it, I believe, and that's really important for people's well-being. So yeah, time without being on video call is good.
Okay, and do you have any thoughts on what business travel is going to look like in the future? We've talked a bit about how long we think it's going to take to pick up, but how is it going to be different, and how will businesses have to adapt to that change? Maria, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, a big one that has been a topic of discussion, certainly with our corporate customers, is the wearing of face masks and face coverings. And it seems that that's going to be part of everyday life. When we start to travel, we saw Eurostar have introduced that just yesterday, and it will become more and more prevalent. And it's something that's really not part of our nature. We haven't done that before, and corporates are all going to have to put that into their travel policies. We all will, as TMCs, need to put that into our own business practice. How do we make sure that people have got the right face coverings if they're traveling to a different destination? What's the cultural policy? What's the cultural policies in different hotels? I think that will be a real major change, is just the way that we actually do it, let alone the social distancing measures. But some of those things are going to make us feel different and make us feel maybe uncomfortable.
Clive, your thoughts on sort of the future of business travel and the changes?
Yeah, it's so hard because there's so many unknowns, and we keep coming back to the ones that are kind of very visual for people, and I think somewhat concerning around the face masks. And clearly, I'm not medical with that, but it's just to make sure that the science behind that kind of stuff stacks up, and that it's not just a reaction. I'm not claiming it isn't. I'm just saying that what we need is some really clear, defined reasons as to why we're doing it, and then people will be fine with it. But we know from some of the kind of research that's been done out there that there's a lot of road warriors that just want to get back on an aeroplane, that just want to get back on a train, and they won't change. It's the ones above that where we are going to see lots of changes. But you would have seen equally Heathrow Airport, the CEO coming out saying it's just impossible to get social distancing of any level through an airport. So what level are we going to be comfortable with? So I think it's really hard right now until we know what's coming. It will be different, and people will make changes. But I think that's the job of our members is navigating our corporates through all of this and keeping it up to date and keeping them informed with really good science-backed information that they can understand and then put through to their travellers.
And Tom, anything to add there?
I mean, I'll just add both people's points are completely right, and that's what we think really. But I think also it's going to be really important for corporates to be able to manage that all their people are aware of all the things that Clive and Maria have just said, so that corporates are going to have a responsibility to make sure that their travellers are aware of what things need to be in place when they turn up at the airport, and also aware of maybe danger areas where they can't go. So I think it's about information at the corporate level as well as the traveller level as well.
Okay, we're almost running out of time there. So just to end on a bit more of a positive note, I just wanted to ask if you think that potentially more people might actually choose to book through a TMC or a business agent once this is all over for security's sake. Maria, what are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I think 100%. I mean, we again, through the BTA, we'll be promoting the use of working with TMCs. I think they've shown themselves to be really invaluable during this time, both in terms of duty and care, managing refunds, changing flights. If you book directly with the airline, you've got to manage that all yourself, and yet you can come through a TMC and they can do that for you. So I think there's going to be such uncertainty that corporates will need a TMC to manage that. There's still going to be a need for a lot of personal responsibility. I think, like Thomas said, the corporates are going to have a responsibility to tell people what they need, but in the end, because it's going to be so different, there's going to be a lot of responsibility put on the person travelling. So I think a combination of having a good TMC backing you up, plus good corporate governance, and then personal responsibility are the three things that I think will be really key to corporates moving forward, and we can support them in that.
Mm-hmm. And Tom, would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. We're already seeing inbounds right now, which is brilliant for our good news stories that people still think business travel is going to be important for them sort of as lockdown comes out. But those are the things that customers are saying to us, that they've been dealing with their travel maybe for a few years online, and now that this has happened, they've not been able to deal with all the things that they need to, such as duty of care, refunds, in the way that they could have if they'd have had a TMC.
Mm-hmm. And Clive, do you have the final word on that one?
Yeah, well, of course, I would say that it's the only way to go is to go through a travel management company, not just because of this scenario, but because of what our members do on a day-to-day basis. But more importantly, what I think this brings out is the human contact that is needed. And when you're traveling to somewhere that is unknown to you and there's a bit of fear, the first thing people are still doing is picking up the phone and wanting to speak to someone, whether that's a WhatsApp message or old school phone like myself. I think it really puts TMCs have that people there, as Maria and like Tom said, to service all of that piece. But we just recognise the value of what a travel management company does, and the spectrum of work that they do is just huge. And it is just, as I said, a professional services organisation that is there alongside a corporate, helping them to grow their business and look after their biggest asset, which are their employees. So simply, it just makes complete sense that people will start moving back to have that, for want of a better word, a comfort blanket around them, as well as the great service and everything else that a travel management company offers.
Okay, brilliant. Well, I think that's about all we've got time for today, actually. So thank you to all three of you for joining me today. And also thank you to everyone who's tuned in right now. There won't actually be an Agent Matters panel next week because we're hosting our Digital Destinations Festival. So do look out for lots of great destination content on Facebook next week. But we will be back on the 19th of May for another Agent Matters panel. So thanks again to all my panelists and look after yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.